Thank you for joining the Resilient Cyber Show. My name is Chris Hughes, and today I'm joined by Jim Manico. Jim, thanks for being here.
Chris, it's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to today's discussion.
Yeah, likewise. I was telling you, before we went live here, I've been following you for a long time, seen, many of your talks and your thought leadership within the industry. But for folks that don't know you within application security and cybersecurity more broadly, can you tell us a bit about who Jim is and what you're up to?
I'm Jim Manico. I'm the founder of Manico Security. I'm a OWASP volunteer. I'm a Java champion. I wrote a book called Ironclad Java. For about 15 years, I've been teaching developers how to ship software that's security-centric, secure by design. I focus on boring things, Chris. I focus on things like, hey, if you're going to put untrusted data in the type argument of create element in React, should you allow list validation? Really like low-level secure coding framework techniques. At OWASP, I'm really excited. I always try to find something new to keep my excitement up about our industry. I'm working on a new standard called the AISVS, the Artificial Intelligent Security Verification Standard. We also just released ASVS for web apps version 5.0 about a month ago. Working on AI prompts, doing a lot of stuff right now. That's me in a nutshell, though, sir.
Yeah, you actually talked about during the talk you gave that you're building out this library of essentially of secure coding prompts that you really just kind of building through your work for decades now at this point, which we'll get to. But when you gave this talk, you talked about it was titled something akin to like transforming secure software creation with AI, and you talked about how you're doing the combination of work that used to take you tens or hundreds of hours or teams of people to do. And can you tell us a bit about like what you're doing there? Because you kind of laid out this. It sounded fascinating how you're using multiple models for multiple purposes, and you use one model for X and different model for Y, and you bring it all together to get to the outcome for organizations that you're doing work for. Like, what does that look like right now in practice for you?
So, well, first of all, think about just doing a publication, right? Like if I want to do an OWASP cheat sheet on some kind of application security topic, that's usually about like 40 hours of writing with peer review. And now if I use like ChatGPT, like the reasoning model, the 3.0 reasoning model or 4.0, I'll get a draft in 4 minutes. And then what I'll do is I'll use deep research across OpenAI, deep research to review that document in Grok, then use deep research in Claude, then use deep research in Gemini to try to remove hallucinations and carefully review the suggestion in each engine, review it myself carefully. So what would usually take me like 40 hours of research, I can use AI tool chains and about like an hour curating, not 40 hours curating. So I get better economy of scale. Or like if I want to do a traditional threat model, I can do like 2 or 3 weeks to do a really detailed threat model of complicated software, say. But now I can use like a prompt to do a lot of my interviews, and I can get AI to generate a stride model and like a mermaid diagram after the interview process in a couple of minutes. And then as an analyst, I'll do like an hour sanity pass. So I'm not saying like AI is going to solve these problems, but they're going to solve a lot of the rote parts of like threat modeling. I could do like interviewing now with an AI engine extremely well. I just need to do the analysis at the end. Now, all right, so secure coding. So why this is exciting is I can now take knowledge of a vulnerability. Like suppose you're working at an AppSec group and you see a developer write a major bug in a framework and you catch it through pen testing. Well, you can go back to a set of instructions, write down what the developer should have done to avoid that problem, and then teach an AI engine how to write secure code the first time. So a developer or junior developers or senior developers or anyone who's using AI as part of their software engineering workflow, we can spot where these AI engines fail to do security well, and absolutely they fail to do security well. And we can teach them what it would look like to do better secure coding. And the impact is significant. The impact of how we can change AI to write secure code is a dramatic difference with today's technology, Chris.
Yeah, one thing that jumped out to me in your talk, and I told you this offline too, is like you've been around security a long time. I've been around security about 2 decades. There's always this risk averse nature within security. We always think about all the things that can go wrong, and what about X, Y, and Z? And we saw this with cloud and mobile and SaaS, and the waves before this, DevOps and so on. And I feel like it almost. I know you're talking about secure coding, but I'm curious your perspective on the enterprise perspective. Like, this risk adverse nature kind of creates a situation where we perpetuate the bolting on of security, because the business moves out, developers move out, engineering moves out, they adopt these new technologies. We're kind of back doing our hand wringing, worrying about all the things that can go wrong. But you've dove in head first on this technology with AI. What are your thoughts around like that kind of behavior within security and the ramifications across like enterprises, as we are so risk adverse traditionally?
Well, think about it today. Like Chris, the cat's out of the bag, to cliche. It's like developers are using AI to help them write software. But the problem with that today is that take a look at open source repos. I'm going to quote something from Git Guardian's blog. There's about one insecure snippet per 3.6 thousand lines of code. And this is what LLMs have trained on. They're going to regurgitate those vulnerabilities. So if you look at the 2025 benchmark from Arvix, ARXIV research, they say that vulnerable code rates range anywhere from 9.8 to 42% across top tier LLMs. This is like, and if you just say, please use OWASP ASVS style instructions, just by asking for security, you will reduce vulnerability problems in AI engines by about 65%. That's not enough for my taste, but just asking an AI engine to write secure code will make a difference. But there's a limit to what that can do. And so I think of it this way, like these AI engines that are already being used by developers, if you give it the right instruction, they're going to write much better secure code, but that takes a lot of meticulous work to build those prompts. It's going to take a lot of effort to understand where AI fails and write those instructions. That's a great task for an AppSec team, for a security champion, or for a lead developer. But why this is so powerful is if we at the enterprise level manage the AI engines that our developers are using, as we go forward and we see where AI is writing insecure code, we can write an instruction, an AI prompt around what security should look like in that framework in a specific way, roll those out to developers. And for a developer, they don't really have to use a new tool, Chris. They don't have to use my dashboard. They don't have to use my new pipeline. They don't have to use some brand new scanning tool. All they have to do is switch the default LLM that they're using within their current existing workflow, and they'll get the benefit from security prompting. And this is something that you can evolve as a company, right? As we depend on AI more and more, we'll get more data and more understanding of where AI is writing insecure code by doing security scanning and normal testing. We have a feedback loop where we go back to our raw prompts around how AI should write secure code, fix it, add a new rule, explain where it's making a mistake, roll those out to developers, or even better, if developers are using existing GPTs, say cloud-based services, you can just update a private cloud service for that framework, and developers will pick up the new rules in real time. In short, here's why I'm excited about this, because developers are using it already. Prompting AI to write secure code and explaining to it what it means works. It's extremely effective of a technique when you do it right. It's not that hard. And three, to roll this kind of tooling out to developers is relatively straightforward. And there's a lot of different ways to roll out prompt instructions. So that's why I think, in my opinion, why security prompting of AI engines is not negotiable. This is the main AppSec new task that I think we should be looking at as AppSec teams across the world right now.
Yeah, you actually, took me to my next question for you. Is like, during the talk that you gave that I was listening to, you laid out how you were using this security-centric prompting. And as you point out, it's due to the fact these frontier models and leading models are trained on open source, which of course, has a lot of vulnerabilities associated with it and so on. And you laid out how you're using these security-centric prompts to produce, more secure code. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, this is great. but everyone's not Jim. Everyone's not, all developers are not taking the time to, like, have 20 years of experience in this, and, like, using security oriented prompting to produce secure code. And it seems like an opportunity, as you said, for the enterprise. But I also think about, like, the startup ecosystem. Um, for example, I could see something coming about where vendors are putting out, whether it's security, or models that are trained particularly on secure code, or frameworks and guardrails that could somehow be baked into development processes, right? To kind of put those guardrails in place for developers who are not going to natively use those kind of prompts and cite ASVS on their own and things like that. Where do you see it coming, not just from the enterprise perspective, but maybe from, like, the startup ecosystem, or that kind of thing?
you know, I'll speak for myself, but like I've been teaching developers to write secure code for a long time, and I've built up a lot of courseware, PowerPoints, and rules and all this. So I don't want to get too like marketing and sales on you, Chris. That's not why I jumped in, but I believe in this technique so much that I'm like building a giant prompt library that's unique to each framework, and I'm going to start licensing them. I'm going to push that out in like a week or so, if not sooner. I'll stop there. I'm happy to talk about it as you think is appropriate, but
No,
I
I think this is exactly what the industry needs. Yeah.
and by the way, Chris, something I told myself, I'm a teacher. By the way, being a teacher, I'm basically a PowerPoint jockey and proud of it. I like to, I'm proud of it. I do a lot of teaching. It pays well. I love doing it. I'm like a fourth generation educator in my family. I'm a good researcher. So I like teaching. I promised myself I would never do a product. I know how crazy it is. I'll like invest in other teams that want to do products. I believe in AI prompting for secure coding so much that it's going to be like at Manico, the first product I'm spitting out is licensing prompts to write secure code. I recommend other people do it as well, right? In different
Yeah.
specialties.
I don't, I know what you're saying. Like, you feel kind of like slimy selling something, but
Yeah,
you've
absolutely.
cultivated this through decades of expertise. And, like, if it works, as you said, if you don't use these kind of security centric prompts, like, the proof is in the pudding. You're going to have much more vulnerable code, a bigger attack surface. And it made me think of something. Obviously, I'm excited for what you're rolling out. I think it's going to be great for the community. But that aside, like, where we are now, and knowing that many people are quote unquote vibe coding, or just kind of trusting inherently
Exactly.
whatever the models produce, where do you see the AppSec landscape in the next few years, before we kind of get around to, like, getting these prompts and libraries and things, kind of widely used?
Think of it like a maturity model today, and I'll take some guesses at the future. But like at the lowest level, you're not using AI. You're just doing manual coding. You're basically like a Neanderthal in the woods with two rocks, banging them together to start a fire. Oh, so up the tier, you're using AI as part of your workflow. You're dabbling with it to write certain functions. Great. You're getting some productivity gains. A level up, you're cranking out code with AI. You're now a vibe coder. You're not doing a lot. You're not doing it very meticulously, but you're getting mammoth productivity gains. You can do a lot of fast prototyping of big apps. You're a vibe coder. Now you're a prompted vibe coder. You start to set like maintenance requirements and style requirements, maybe a little bit of security. You're now prompting AI a little bit to write better code. Now level up, you're enterprise prompter, where you've got like meticulous instructions that explains to AI how to write secure code. And right below that, you're building a prompt that says, asking AI, write secure code for me. And you get a 65% boost in security vulnerability density just by saying, write me secure code. I'm working on beyond the 65% by giving AI very specific rules about what the rest of that security really means. And then, okay, up a stack, you have that detailed prompt. And up a stack even more, you're now an agentic AI developer with mammoth prompting and review chains, where you're not just like using AI to write code. You got AI agents doing all kinds of work for you automatically when you're sleeping, unit testing, trying things out, fail the unit test, trying out, using like the more advanced like codecs and AI workflow tools to do full development securely, because you're using AI prompts embedded in that tool chain. The future, I think I got like a 3-year window to sell prompts to really help people out, right? They pay for themselves pretty quickly. And I'm guessing in about 3 years, the AI engines of the day, they'll start to get like better engines around security, because the way I see it is they're training on a lot of this open source code base. There's a lot of insecurity. Like we talked about the density, like one major vulnerability every like 3,600 lines of code. There's also examples of like how to do it securely. And as AI learns that, as we write prompts to point to it, and just as AI in general has better iterations and training on better data around security, it's going to get better. I'm guessing 3 years, maybe 5 years. So I think like
Yeah,
crafted prompting has a limited shelf life, is my guess.
yeah, I think you're right, and I hope you're right, honestly, because that'll be kind of more of a systemic, widespread adoption across the industry as they start to bake these into the leading, models and providers and things like that. You kind of opened the door to the agentic topic, so I guess I'll take us there for a moment. During the talk, you also talked about how you have teams of agents of doing different activities, and you were like discussing the kind of like the force multiplier effect that this is having for you. And we've seen large organizations, large tech companies do some pretty big layoffs in the last like 12 to 18 months. And like some of it's been tied to economics and ZERP and zero interest and blah, blah, blah. But a lot of it's been tied to AI and things like that too. What do you think is unfolding here? And you've made comments during the talk about if you're not using this, like you're likely going to be replaced by people who are. So I'm curious, like your thoughts on the workforce component of this.
Well, the world's changing in a way that I don't think we fully understand yet. So, Chris, who the hell knows? But what I do know is that early on, when I started research, I teach an AI course, AI security course, in my developer security part of my business, right? And I was worried that like just AppSec training would start to fade. So like 2 or 3 years ago, I put a lot of work into building a very mature AI security class. It takes a lot, but without using AI tools, actually doing the research mostly manually so I could teach it. And a lot of people who are friends of mine were looking at me like, they saw me using, and I'm using AI at the ASVS standard for email. I'm using it for coding. I'm experimenting with it in all aspects of my life. I got a lot of negative feedback from everybody. Like AI is garbage. AI security is not that important. I got a lot of pushback that I shouldn't be researching it. And I charge forward. And this year, like 90% of my classes are AI security. So like the point I'm trying to make is by embracing this technology, by learning how to do AI prompting for secure coding and coding maintainability and coding quality, by getting good at these next generation tools, you should see at least like a 50% productivity gain, if not a great deal more. And it'll make you more useful as a developer in the future. And if you don't, your productivity is going to be very different compared to developers who've achieved maturity in AI tooling. There's tons of work to do. It's not like we don't need software engineers anymore, but when a large number of developers have learned how to get a mammoth productivity gain by using new tools, it makes those that don't less valuable. So my answer to the change in technology is, damn it, Chris, be a technologist and learn how to use these new tools, because there are hallucinations and bad coding practices out of AI. AI makes a lot of mistakes. That's why prompting and teaching AI how to do it right is so important.
Yeah, I'm just throwing some comments in there from the audience. Like, people are kind of leaning into the mantra that you're explaining here. I wanted to ask you as well. Like, I know you live and breathe AppSec. You spend a lot of your time there, but there's folks that are looking at the application of AI in other areas of cyber too, whether it's GRC and compliance documentation and those kind of activities, or SecOps and alert triage and fatigue of people working in SOCs and so on. When you look across like the ecosystem, I know you do some investing and things like that. You have to name any companies, but what other areas do you see like this outsized potential for AI to kind of disrupt, if not all of them? But just curious your perspective on that too.
Everything. Yeah, all of it.
Yeah, I had a feeling that'd be your answer, but yeah,
Mechanical
it's exciting.
engineering. Oh, well, I did a talk at a mechanical engineering firm in Copenhagen, and like they already knew that this is going to change mechanical engineering, because mechanical engineering hasn't changed that much since the 60s. We've had linear progression in like industrial design, but plane's still a plane. So now, like mechanical engineering firms are teaching AI engines about their design philosophy, about the different design blogs and design books and design theorists that they like in their as embeddings and fine tuning their models. Then they get a request from a customer, and they can use AI to generate like so many more prototypes. And it allows them to do the work of thousands of people. Now they need humans to review the prototypes and to prompt the engines. It's not like AI is doing their job for them, but it lets them iterate on mechanical design radically. Same thing with pharmaceuticals. Same thing with doing marketing text or working on a website copy or like writing a letter to someone. You name it. AI is it's growing in its capability and it augments a lot of things, if not everything.
Yeah, I just, I'll round us out there for the interview. I'll just say it's so refreshing to see this kind of perspective from someone who is such an expert in the field of cyber because, there's no denying, like you look at the social media and stuff, like there's a lot of excitement around AI and cyber, but, a lot of it's coming from investors and startups. And like, they have an incentive to kind of drive that mantra where practitioners are a bit more reserved. So hearing it from someone like you, I was like, hell yeah. Like, it's someone like it's deep in the weeds. They're seeing the force multiplier effect of this technology and the impact address like systemic challenges we have in cyber. Like we have a long list of issues that we've had for a long time. And I think this technology can do a lot of good. So I'm going to link folks to your talk and I really appreciate you jumping on and chatting with me today, man.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. My pleasure, Chris. Thank
Absolutely.
you for having me on.
Absolutely. Take care.
Take care, sir. Thanks for having me.